All right, Adi, can you test your microphone?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, awesome. Well, it's a couple minutes after 12 o'clock Eastern here. I think we should just get started. I know some people are still joining in, which is
Right.
fine. Um, but let's get started. So I first want to thank everyone for taking time out of their day today to join us and learn about how to convert phone calls into jobs if you're a water damage contractor. I know that you guys are busy and you got a lot of things going on, so it's just really nice to see this many people come out and join us to learn. Uh, Before we get started, I just want to introduce myself and Adi. We're both going to be co-presenting this webinar today for you. If you don't know myself, I'm Drew Johnson. I'm one of the co-founders here at 33 Mile Radius. Adi, do you want to introduce yourself really quickly?
Sure. My name is Adi, and I am the co-founder of Business Success Consulting Group, and we specialize in putting in systems and processes into businesses.
Awesome. So, yeah, let's get on to it. I'm sorry, so more people join in here, which is good. So let's just get into it here. Today's outline, we're going to have a three-part webinar today for you. The first part will be how to close more water damage calls, and that's going to be me kind of talking about some of the best practices and some tips and tricks that we've found as we've listened to hundreds of thousands of water damage phone calls here in the past few years. And really just want to share with you what the top performers are doing to get these jobs. Part two, Adi is kind of going to go into how to take these best practices and these tips and really implement them within your business, within your team, to make sure that you guys are utilizing these each and every single time. The final part will be part three, and there'll be some Q&A. If you guys have any questions and whatnot, we'll be happy to answer those. But the important thing I want to hit on is I want to make this interactive. Adi and I will be going back and forth today throughout each slide. But if you have a question or if you have a best practice that you would like to share with the group, please send it over. We would love to kind of chat with it and learn from you as well. So we want this kind of be a learning session for everyone. So if you have any thoughts or ideas or tips or tricks, feel free to send them over. You can hit the Q&A button and then send a question over, or you can just chat us, and we'll get to you as soon as we can. So without further ado, unless Adi, you have anything else to add, I'm going to get started.
Yeah, let's get started.
Awesome. So again, the main point of this webinar today is how to close more water damage phone calls. I think this is the number one question we get from our contractors once they're signed up with us is, hey, we're getting phone calls into our business, which is great, but we want to take more of those and secure more of those jobs. And there's always room for improvement. So what we have done over the past few years is obviously we've listened to thousands of phone calls and really got a good sense of what works and what doesn't. And that's what I want to go over to you in this part right now. So the first piece is really answering the phone call. And there's two parts to it. One is, A, you have to answer the phone call, and B, you have to answer it correctly. So to take a step back, before you even say hello, you need to make sure you answer the phone. And I know for a lot of you here today, that makes a lot of sense, but you'll be surprised of how many times calls do end up going to voicemail or just ringing for over a minute, 2 minutes, that sort of thing. So the first two key things are really you got to answer the phone, and I know that should go without saying. But when you do answer the phone, what we have found is it's got to be either yourself, as the business owner, or one of your employees who can actually help the customer out, either with their situation or just have some that knowledge and breadth of what they're dealing with. Typically, when we see it go to a call center, unless that call center is very good, the results just aren't there. And then if it hits some complex IVR, we see a lot of drop off with that. And for those who don't know, an IVR is when you call a business, it says press 1 for sales, press 2 for support, press 3 for accounting, that sort of thing. For your emergency phone call line, you want to try to avoid that. The quicker that you can get online, or on the phone call with the customer, the better. Uh, so those are some of the technical things, but the most important thing is how do you answer the phone call? And there's a right way and there's a wrong way. The right way entails of three pieces of information, and that is one, your company name, two, your name, and three, that you can help. So on this slide right here, you can see the right way that we have found, and this is the shortest and sweetest that I've kind of seen out there, is hello and thank you for calling XYZ Restoration. This is Drew. How can I help you? And that covers those three things. It makes sure that the caller knows they reached the right company, that they know who they're talking to, and that you can help them. We see a lot of contractors, unfortunately, answer hello or this is Drew. And unfortunately, what that does, it sends mixed signals to the person calling. A, they may not know that they're calling the right place. And it leaves them kind of in an awkward situation where, hey, I'm calling you and I'm trying to reach you, and I got 6 inches of water in my basement or in my home. I need help. It just sets that conversation off on the wrong tone. So again, it really just goes to stating three things: your company, your name, and hey, that you can help them out, and you want to be able to help them out with their emergency. So, Adi, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, as you were saying, what you were saying is definitely correct. And I just wanted to go over the why behind why is it important to answer the phones? Because from my experience, and I didn't say that, but both Drew and I have tremendous experience working with contractors and restoration contractors. And we listen to, how many calls, Drew, do you think? Like thousands of calls. So we know how people answer the phones, right?
Yeah.
But, what I encounter, like the understanding why it is important, because sometimes I talk to contractors and I say, well, I'm talking to another customer on the other line. They can go to voicemail and I can call them back. Well, this is an emergency response. The customer is calling you, the client is calling you, they have some kind of an emergency. They're not going to wait for you to call back. If you do not answer, they're going to go to the next one. So that's the urgency in answering the phone. That's why. And the other point here, in terms of how to answer the phone, you just have to be prepared. Every time you pick up the phone, you have to be prepared that this is going to be the biggest job that you have ever done. That's the attitude you have to have. And you also have to have the attitude you're going to help the customer on the other side. When you have that attitude, when you're picking up the phone, even if it's 4 a.m. in the morning, even if it's 4 a.m., it will come across, and the customer on the other side will feel secure and will feel confident that you can help them.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. I was going to mention that later on, but, treating each call like it's $1 million job or $100,000
Right.
job or $10,000 job, whatever that number is that gets you going. That's the way to do it, because your voice and your confidence and everything that will actually transcend or go to the customer, and they'll feel that, and they'll feel that, hey, this guy's really out trying to help me. So you got to kind of put yourself in mindset no matter what time it is.
Exactly.
So yeah, we got a question here. Is it okay if we use an IVR if we have a press 1 for an emergency? Again, I'm not trying to tell you that you can't use an IVR. I'm just trying to tell you that if there is no IVR, is the best option. If you have an IVR, you have to have an IVR for some reason. Make it as quick and user-friendly as possible. If you do, I think that's a great way to do it, is have that number one thing be, if there's an emergency, press 1 now, and then go into the rest of your listings. Don't bury it somewhere else or make it kind of complicated and convoluted. Hit them right away, and as soon as they hit that IVR, it says, if this is an emergency, please press 1 to be connected to a contractor right now. And then they get connected right away. So yeah, that's okay. I mean, optimally it would be, hey, they call the number and they get connected right to you, but that's definitely okay. So, all right, Adi, anything else before I kind of move on to the next slide here?
No, I think let's move on. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so the next piece here is really the middle of the call, and this is really you have to collect vital information and control the call. And there's a lot here, but overall the goal should be of you setting up that in-home estimate. Whether it's free or not, most of the industry is free now, but trying to set up that in-home estimate, that's the ultimate goal. And the way that you do that is you need to let the customer know that you can help and that you can be out to their home or business immediately. I think we're in the middle of the call. Sometimes what happens is the customer's obviously concerned, worried, and they want somebody to come out there, but they have a lot of questions. They want to know, hey, about insurance. They want to know, what you're going to do. And you do need to answer those questions, but you need to do so in a manner that pushes the call or that goal towards that in-home estimate. If you spend 5 minutes, if you spend 10 minutes talking to them about insurance or lecturing them on about the insurance industry, or hey, I'm going to come here and do this and this and this, and start talking to them in jargon terms, you're going to lose them a little bit. So that stuff is usually best off to be talking to them or be talked about in person with them. Once you get to the job site, you can go in depth about insurance. You can go in depth about, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what it looks like we need to do. Use those terms if you need to, but you're going to be there and be able to point those out to them and really make them understand what you're going to be doing. On the first phone call, it's really about, hey, you know what? I need to get out there. I need to get a sense of what the problem is and what the issue is, to answer all these questions. And really, at the end of the day, the longer that you wait with 6 inches of water in your basement or wherever, the more damage is going to be done. So I really need to get out there and do the job. And like I said, if they come up with those questions, don't be mean and not answer them or totally throw them off like a politician would, but answer them as quickly and concisely as you can, and make sure that they feel comfortable that you're going to go out there and answer more once you get out there and see the property. So, Dee, do you have anything else to add there?
You just re-emphasize again, it's the attitude, before you answer the phone, again, the attitude is, I'm going to help that customer. And the way that you're going to help that customer is by actually arriving at their home and seeing what the situation is. And first of all, you have to have the willingness to do that. So if you answer the phone and you're already thinking, well, I don't want to get out of bed, it's 3 a.m. and, so I'm just going to postpone it for tomorrow, it's going to come across. So just have that attitude that it's going to be the best job you've ever gotten, and you are going to go there in person, whether yourself or your lead estimator or a technician, whomever it is that is on call. That's the job, is to actually go in person. And you direct the call as much as possible. The best way, and we're going to talk about it later, is to be very prepared and drill it. Role play different scenarios. Customers, you already by now, what questions you're going to be asked. Is this my insurance coverage? Do I have to call my insurance agent first? Well, how much is it going to cost me? Can you give me an estimate over the phone? And all those. So just ask some very specific qualifying questions for you. For instance, are you the owner? And probably that's about it. I mean, you just want to make sure you're dealing with the owner, because then it depends on your sales skills to actually close the job when you arrive. Whether it's insurance or a cash job, it depends on your sales skills. So you just have to have the list of questions prepared for you in terms of like their name, the address, and that's pretty much it. And then you said, okay, we're going to arrive within 45 minutes or 50 minutes or an hour, however time you allow yourself, and be very specific. And just like Drew, what you said was exactly right. You have to convey the urgency. You have water. This can turn the damage. The best thing is for us to arrive right away, so it doesn't create further damage. And if you convey that urgency to the customer on the other side of the line, they will agree for you to come over. And
Right.
and another tip is like, if they ask all these questions, they ask you, would my insurance cover it and all that, you say, what, you can say, sir or ma'am, the best thing is I can answer those questions in person what after I assess the situation, because that's the professional thing to do. I mean, just give advice over the phone based on what they tell you. It's not really professional, because you didn't see the situation yourself.
Right, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, we're not trying to deceive anybody here. We want to make sure it's, we're answering the questions properly, and part
Correct.
of that is going out there and seeing the job.
Right.
But I think some customers may see that as a way to get out there and try to secure the job. You just need to make sure they're comfortable and do so in the right way. So,
for sure.
I just threw up some examples on this slide here of the things that we've seen, common questions and ways kind of to answer them properly. On example 3, I really like this example. And a lot of times what happens is customers will call and if you're in a big city, you may be on the other side of town. And for whatever reasons, a lot of customers just feel comfortable if you were closer to them. So a good way around that is to say, hey, I have a team in the area that can be out to you in 30 minutes. Can I confirm your address, and we'll be out there. It doesn't really matter where you're located as long as you can be there in the time frame that you specify. So try to avoid saying, well, we're on the other side of town and stuff like that. Even though you may have different offices, make sure to say, hey, at the end of the day, we're going to be there in 30 minutes. We're in the area now. Go out, and we can go out there and help you out. We got the experience. So I think that's a good way around where are you located? I don't want somebody from across town, that sort of thing. At the end of the day, the importance is speed. If I can be out there in half an hour, it doesn't matter where I come from. If I already have a team out, or if I'm dispatching them from maybe their home or something like that. Adi, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that. If not, we can keep moving here.
Yes,
Okay.
Let's move on.
All right. So the last part is obviously the end of the phone call. And this, to me, is the most important piece, if not equally tied with the beginning of the phone call, how you answer that phone call. And it's simply because even if you get them to agree for you to come out and give that in-home estimate, nothing is signed yet. If you leave them on the call with an uneasy feeling, or a feeling like, hey, I may not get the best work or best value out of these guys, they can easily call somebody else. They can call the next person that they do a search for on Google or on Home Advisor or wherever the heck they found you. They can easily have somebody else and come out and give you an estimate, or give them an estimate. And you don't want that. And the best way to avoid that is three things: is to confirm the details, confirm their address with them, confirm their name, confirm their phone number, make sure you have that information. It will make them feel comfortable that you're really double checking your work. Set the expectations of, hey, you know what? We're going to be out there between 7:30 and 7:45. My contractor, Josh, is going to arrive in a blue truck that says XYZ Restoration. Once he is there, he'll be sure to answer any additional questions that you have, give you an estimate, and then if you're comfortable with that estimate, begin work. In the meantime, if you have any other additional questions, please call me directly at 123, whatever your phone number is. That does those three things. It confirms the details, it sets those expectations, it lets them know who's coming and how to contact you. This is the best way to end the phone call. It answers kind of all their questions. If they have more, they can give you a call.
Good. Drew, I want to just emphasize one of the things you said. It's very important, is that it's the confidence. What you have a very small period of time, but with that first phone call, to make the correct impression. And if you give them the impression that they can trust you, that you're confident in what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, so you're going to take care of them, and you give them the reassurance that you're going to take care of everything and everything will be okay. Yes, you understand it's an emergency. You have dealt with many of those. You're very experienced, and you have a very experienced team, and you are sending that experienced team to their house to help them right away. They will feel secure, and they will feel that they found somebody that they can trust. And that can also stop them from calling down the list, because they will feel confident that you can help them, and they will feel comfortable with you. So those are the attributes that you want to look at and figure out how to convey those in that first phone call, because that is the important piece in that phone call, not necessarily all the information that you're giving or not giving.
Right, absolutely. And I wanted to add in here another kind of trick that we've seen a lot of contractors use, and that is to give the homeowner a couple of tasks to do in that that between time before you arrive. So maybe it's 45 minutes or half an hour or whatever that looks like. Give them a couple of tasks for them to do to kind of carry on and be ready for not only when you arrive, but it gives them something to do to not call somebody else and think about it and sit there and worry, oh my gosh, my house is flooded, everything's ruined, where are they? They're taking too long. Give them a few things to do. It will ease their mind. It will make them feel productive. And once you arrive, they'll be happy and excited that you can kind of pick up where they left off. And obviously, that's not going to be able to happen every time, but it's just an idea that we've seen work. So
That's an excellent advice. Yeah, you just have to be very direct with them and say, okay, here's what I would like you to do right now so we can start a process, and just tell them whatever you feel is the right thing that they can do, have them do that. I think
right.
it's a great advice.
Right, absolutely. And I do see, Joe, you did raise your hand. I don't know if you have a question or something like that. Feel free to send it over in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer it for you. If you have something you want to talk about on the microphone, let me know too, and I'll give you the mic, and you can share with us if you have some example. All right. So in the meantime, we're going to move on. So I wanted to share with you 3 deadly mistakes that we see on calls on a daily basis. And we kind of went over these already, but the first one is just giving too much information. Like I said, diving into the weeds with these customers is not a good thing. It's really easy to do, but it's something that you need to try to avoid. And a couple I mentioned was, insurance and jargon talk and that sort of thing. You just have to be cognizant about what you're saying and trying to move that call forward. The ultimate goal is on the phone call is to try to get that in-home estimate. And once you're in the home, then you can kind of show off your skills and your knowledge and everything like that. But while on the call, you got to be confident. Hey, I've been here before. We can help you out. I just need to get there to kind of see the situation, and then I'll be able to give you a fair price. So that's kind of what you need to watch out for and do. So I'm going to move right on. The second one is not being available. Water damage is an emergency situation. A lot of you guys I know are 24/7, but you need to make sure you kind of practice that. If it's New Year's Eve at 11 o'clock, and you get a call and it seems like a small job, I know it's very easy to say, hey, you know what, I'll come out in the morning. But in a real life example we had this year was we got a call at one of our contractors got a call around 11 o'clock at night, New Year's Eve. It sounded like a small job. He went out there to the job site. It turned out to be a $30,000 job. When he was wrapping up in the morning, I think it took him all night to do so. The contractor that was called first showed up and was wondering why this other contractor was out finishing up the job. And he said, you know what? I know it was New Year's Eve, but I decided to come out and start work right away. So it goes back to what Adi said earlier, is like treat every job like it's $1 million or $10,000, whatever that number is for you. And that way you're going to find those big jobs and they're going to come. Now, are you going to get them every single time? No. But, this is a numbers game to some extent. You got to play. Sometimes you're going to lose, but, when that big job comes, you're going to be prepared and you're going to be ready. All right.
Good. I think Joe has a question. I just saw it coming in.
Okay. Yeah, Joe. So is there any benefit of asking if they're calling from a landline or a cell phone? And also, if we get disconnected, what is the best number to call you back?
Yeah, if we get disconnected, is the best. I like if you get disconnected, what's the best number to call you, because that will give them the incentive to give you the phone number. Because if you don't, that's a good way to shorten the time, because otherwise they can start asking you the question and will only give you the number if you answer their questions. It can go into a whole conversation. That way you're controlling the conversation better and basically directing the conversation and ask them for that number. You could ask them, is that a cell phone or a landline? Can I text you? That can be a quick question. Is it the number I can text you on?
Right, absolutely. And that's a good point is text messages. And Joe, I don't know if you were getting at that, but if you were, that's a great idea, because more and more people are using text messages, and it's really easy to kind of forget about that, kind of in a business sense. You know what I mean? When businesses are texting each other. But I think more people are opening up to that idea. And yeah, asking if it's a cell phone, and indeed, like you said, texting them is another great touch point. It's a little bit more personal, in my opinion. So let's say you get their number and you say, hey, is this a cell phone? I'm going to text you when I leave or when my crew's leaving, and kind of update you along the way. I think that's a really good idea.
And it makes it easier in circumstances where you have, like, let's say it's a bad winter, or like one of the, you have a storm going, and you this is one of those nights that you're getting the 40 leads at night, and you really want to capture each and every one of them, or as many as you can service. Instead of having to call back, if you can just text, it just like cuts down the time.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So let's move on to this third one. I want to keep everything moving on, so we're on time here. This is the number one mistake that we see contractors make, and it's giving the estimate over the phone. This is really easy to do, especially if somebody is really hounding you for an estimate. My motto is it's better to almost let them go away than like give them an estimate over the phone. I know in some circumstances you have to, but overall, by and large, you should try to avoid it as best you can. And the reason being is really twofold. Number one, the people asking for estimates over the phone are really just trying to get the best price. They're tire kicking. Once you give them a price, let's say it's $5,000, they're going to go on to the next person. They're going to call somebody else and say, hey, what's your best price? I got somebody else saying 5,000. And then it just, it creates this bidding war and price war when you haven't even gone out there to give a fair estimate on the job. And more often than not, if you give them that estimate, they're not going to call you back. And you're probably not going to get the job anyway. So it's not even worth it to play that game. The best way to do it is try to pivot and try to say, hey, you know what? I need to go out there. I need to give you an estimate. I'll give you the best price possible, but I need to go out there and see to give you that fair price and give you that fair estimate once I see everything going on. The other downfall of giving that estimate is, let's say you do say it's $2,000, and you get out there and it's something more. It's going to be a tough conversation convincing them that they need to spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 when originally you said $2,000 on the phone. It's just not worth it.
Exactly. It's just not professional. And that goes back to the point where you can just also tell them, it's really, it would be unprofessional for me to give it to you over the phone because I haven't seen the situation. And you can also say, anyone who is trying to attempt to give you a quote over the phone, it's really not professional. And you can again emphasize, I've been doing it for so many years. I have a lot of experience, and I can give you a fair quote once I arrive. The other point, Drew, you'll be surprised, but homeowners that if they never experienced water damage before, they might not even know that their insurance can cover it. Let's say they come home and they see that the water heater, it leaked, and there is water all over the floor and whatnot, and they're not even thinking that the homeowner insurance will actually cover it. So one of the things you can say, that we work with all insurances, and when we come over, we'll determine if it's something you can file a claim, and we'll help you. And that's it. It's like you don't get into more details, but you give them that reassurance that you can help them, and it will be to their benefit for you to come and do the estimate in person.
Right. Exactly. So we do have another question here from David. What is the best homework to give a caller? That's kind of tough. It just is going to depend on the situation. I think the overall one that can apply to any situation is safety. Hey, you don't know what type of water you're going to be dealing with. It could be sewage. It could be, whatever. It may be harmful. So I think the overall one that can always apply is safety. Hey, if water is coming in and it's in the basement or it's in the house, make sure to take care of your pets, your kids, the rest of your family, and then make sure to kind of get that area out. If there's items that are in danger of getting wet that aren't wet yet, start moving those out and whatnot. I think, again, it goes back to what type of call you're dealing with and who the caller is. And that's something you kind of have to come up with while on the phone call. I wish I could give you some better examples, but I'll have to kind of think on that. And I can definitely share those with you if I come up with any and send you an email. Dee, I don't know if you have any ideas or...
Yeah, it really depends on what we're running into. Obviously, if it's sewage, you don't want him to touch it. You don't want to do anything. So the safety part, if it's the water is leaking, let's say from the attic, maybe you can just tell them to put towels, put plastic bags, plastic, whatever they have there that you feel like, from your professional opinion will help or try to minimize the damage and get them to do something or look for something or, I know that when I had water damage in my house, the contractor basically told me what to do in terms of like how to protect the area that was not completely damaged. So I did that, and it really gave me something to do. I had to go find the plastic bags and the towels and whatever. They still came and did what they needed to do, but at least I felt like I was contributing somehow, and I was not just, waiting with seeing the water leaking from the ceiling and just waiting, right? So.
Great. All right. So, Adi, do you want to take it from here and go about how to
Yes,
implement best
absolutely.
practices? Awesome.
So now we're going to talk about how to implement best practices with your team. And any business has we have systems and processes in every business. Basically, a well-run business leans on a combination of systems, and the systems fit neatly within each other. So when I say a system, you have a system on how to hire, you have a system on how to estimate, how to sell the job. There should be a system for marketing, a system for accounting, a system on how to do the job, a system on how to how to open a job, how to close a job, how to write your how to help the customer with the insurance claim, how to collect the money, how to do quality control, and so on. Those are all systems. Now, each system is composed of a series of processes, and the processes are basically the steps that you do in order to accomplish the final result. So, you have those systems and processes, they do exist in your business. The thing is that they're not always documented, and the majority of the time they're in your head, either in your head or your estimator or your office manager. So they have a specific way that they do things. Otherwise, we can't do things. I mean, even when you wake up in the morning and you make your coffee, that's a system. I mean, you probably do the same repetitious actions every single morning. I mean, with some variety, but that's a system. That's a process that you develop within that system. There is the process of making coffee. That's the process. So it exists in every business. The key thing is that they have to be documented. They have to be documented for various reasons. If you want the best practices, if you want things to be done the way that you want them to be done, the employees cannot read your mind. So they need to know what the system is. That's why it has to be documented and get the employees trained on it. The second part is that if you have an employee leave and they do things in a certain way and they leave, you have to have that system documented. And then the third reason is, and Drew mentioned it at the beginning of the call, he said, the best thing is for you to answer the phone directly. And if you're the owner, it's going to be the best. I mean, the reason why he said that is because from our experience, it is the best because the owner is the one who cares the most, or the owner knows how he or she wants the phone to be answered. So that's why it's the safest bet to have the owner do that. But just from my experience dealing with business owners, some of you just cringed because you go, well, I don't want to answer the phone and be on a call on call 24/7 for the rest of my life. That's not why I started a business. Well, if you want to delegate, then you need to create the processes so you can actually delegate it to your lead technician or to your estimator, whomever is on call. But you also have to make sure that they're answering the phones or doing whatever they need to be doing the way you want it done. And the way to do that is to document those processes, to identify those processes, make them as efficient as possible, and document them. So if you want other people to help you grow your business your way, your systems have to be documented. And then you have to train the people on them. This is the only way you're going to be able to successfully grow the business beyond yourself and beyond a few people. Okay, Drew, should we go to the next?
Yeah, yep. I was just going to say, I forgot that you don't have control, so I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the importance of systems and processes. I think you went too far. Okay, good. So, just to go back to the importance of systems and processes, I mean, I talked about some of it, but some of you have been doing it for a long time, or some of you just started, some of you somewhere in the middle, and you feel like, okay, sure, I can train my people without documenting the systems and processes, because really, who has time to document those? Well, the problem with that is that it takes a long time to do that. And it also creates, there is no uniformity within how people do things. So for instance, and people also tend to forget, especially if they answer the phone in the middle of the night, they get woken up, they answer the phone. If there isn't a written process that they've been trained on, they will go back to answer the phone, hello, as opposed to answer it the way you want it answered. So that is why it is so important to document those. So Drew, do you have anything to add on it from your experience?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. If you don't have something in place, your employees are just going to go back to the norm or what they're used to, or how they're answering the phone now. I think a good technical way to get around that, and we do that at 33-mile radius, is when you get a call from us, it's a unique phone number every single every single time. So the call is coming from us, thereby it's a water damage call. Some other phone systems and services can do that as well. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's we've had clients also have a dedicated cell phone. Whoever's on call that day or that night carries that around. If it rings, they know it's an emergency. So it's just kind of being a little bit, think of ways to prep whoever's answering the phone beforehand,
Right,
to
but
know it's a water damage call.
right, and if they have it, I mean, the point is that if they have the systems there and the processes there, they know how to answer it, right?
Right,
Especially if
right.
and they have a process on how to answer the 33-mile radius calls, because you definitely don't want to lose those, because it's just a waste of money. Usually they're very good calls. It's a water damage call. People,
Absolutely.
You want to capture those calls. And, the other, it is it's creating the culture and the expansion that you want by training your employees correctly. So having those systems, the big companies, the ones that expand, the ones that scale up, definitely have those processes documented.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Oh, and another point that I wanted to mention is that when you actually sit down and analyze those processes and identify those and document those, you will be able to go through the different scenarios. I mean, the slides that Drew showed earlier, those are basically the start of a process, like how to answer the phone. Well, if a customer calls and they ask for a quote for a price, this is what you do. If they ask for, is it going to get covered by insurance? This is how you answer it. You go in and you schedule the appointment. This is how much time you have to actually show up. You send a text 10 minutes before you arrive, or you send a text when you enter the van to give an estimated time on when you're going to be there. If you see that you are going over the time that you allowed yourself to be at the customer's house, what do you do? How do you give the courtesy call? What do you say? How to avoid customers from canceling, all of that knowledge that that you have, and all of that experience that you accumulated throughout the years, because each and every one of you probably experienced those scenarios. If it's documented, it just makes it so much easier to make it uniform on how to act and how to behave, and also give that experience to a non-experienced technician, a non-experienced staff member, to get them up to speed very fast. So that way, also the turnover is not going to hurt you. I've seen, as an example, I had a client that, they had a technician that had been working with them for probably over 10 years, and then that technician left. So they felt like, the 10 years of experience that they gained through that technician, they're just losing it. If they had it all documented and everybody working through the same system and the same process, it won't be a problem. Yes, of course, there will be like time to find somebody else and the loss of the person themselves, but it's going to minimize it tremendously.
Absolutely. So we do have a question here on, what is the best way to document the processes? I think that goes into your next slide.
Yeah, we're going to go over it. And if you don't get to it, if we didn't fully answer the question, then we are going to cover it more. Okay, good. So here we have the checklist, instructions, and forms. So these are the just some of the ideas of some of the processes in terms of how to answer the phone or how to get a job that are recommended. So you have to how to answer the phones with all the scenarios which I just covered, how to collect information. So that's, you have to have a form on how to collect information, not just write it on a piece of napkin that you have in your truck or in your van. You know, it has to be, you have to have a form, you have to be prepared, so that way you do not forget to ask for all the vital information, including their email, including their cell phone, anything that you need to know, you just write it there so you have all the information for the lead itself. You know, how to open a job, very important. You know, how do you, when your technician walks into a house, what do they do? How do they open a job? How you estimate? How you monitor the job? How you close the job? How you bill? You know, all of those have to be documented, and they have to be and the right forms have to be created, and you have to have it available for your technicians and for your estimators. So now, how do you I'm going to touch it a little bit. Can you move actually to the
Yeah.
next slide? Let's see if it's the next slide. It covers that. Training, drilling, repeating, perfecting. Right. So
Okay.
first of all, how do you do this? So the way that you do it is you have to name the key processes in your business. The first thing is you name the systems that you have, as we talked about, is you have the HR system, you have the marketing, you have the sales, you have the billing, you have your the jobs themselves on how to do them. You know, if you're doing different aspects, if you're doing construction and you're doing remediation, you might be doing mold remediation as well. So each one of them will have its own system, its own processes. You know, quality control is a system by itself that we have to define the own processes for that. Any business development that you're doing, so that will have processes as well. So first of all, you identify the main systems. Then you look at all of those, you put them in you write it up. Usually we do it as a flow chart. And then we look at each one. So let's, for instance, take estimating. So what are the different processes that we do there? You know, there is the in-home estimating. Then there is like the paperwork that you do when you come back to the office. You know, there's the dealing with the insurance. There is the negotiating with the insurance. There is the also, you know, the final, you know, adjusting the estimate, you know, different things, different processes that fall into estimating. So then you take each process and you write down how you actually do it, like who does it. And if you have other people other than yourself doing it, then you interview them. Well, what do you do? What are the steps? You know, you have to take it step by step. And then you put it all together and you write a checklist with all the core parts of the process. So then every single time, you know that you're going to be doing it. Now, it might be it sounds intimidating, and it might be something that you feel like you can't do it, right? So you're not alone. I mean, many business owners, the processes are so key for the business to grow, but many business owners just put it aside because they just either don't want to find the time or don't find the time to do that. So you can totally help someone to help you do that. I mean, for instance, we have many projects documenting processes because we have the expertise and we know how to do it, and it's something that people don't want to do. So don't be afraid to hire somebody to do it if you can do it yourself or you can delegate it, and it will be done, but it definitely needs to be done. So once you have those processes documented and identified and documented, the next thing is to use them, because it's one thing to write this to have this great binder with all the processes in the business, but the other thing is to actually use it. And the way that you do it is by training. You train your employees on the processes. How do you train them? You have them read it, you question them about it, you have them demonstrate to you that they understand how to do it. You run different scenarios. That's the drilling. You know, you run different scenarios and have them answer how they will respond, what do they do, and you do it over and over and over again until they are until you're satisfied that they can go out. It's like playing sports. You practice over and over and over again. You have the coach that coaches them through it, coaches the players through it until you have until you feel like you can go out on the field and play. So it's the same. It's no difference. There is really not. It's running a restoration company can be looked at as running a game. You're the coach and you have your players, and you have to make sure that all of them are top players. And the way that you do it is you have your playbook, you tell them exactly, you give them the rules, you give them the instructions, and you have them drill it, and you have them practice and practice and practice, and they go out to the field and they execute it. And of course, you have to repeat it over and over again, just like a good athlete will practice daily, right? Over and over again, and no matter how good they are. So you repeat it, you drill, and you perfect it. So if you see that the process is not working, you have to perfect it. You have to see what is not working, fix it, document it, and then again, repeat the cycle. Train your staff, drill it, then repeat it, perfect it, and so on. So that is the secret to grow the business in terms of organizing it and being able to service to full capacity all the leads that you're getting.
Absolutely. And I think one thing I've always heard is, you have to tell somebody 7 times in order for them to understand it.
Right.
That's just human nature. It's how humans work. It's like repetition is a good thing. And you can do so in a nice way, but, that 7 times I think is the scientific number that they say is how many times it typically takes for somebody to kind of understand something, get it resonated, and start doing it, kind of change that habit. So I think that's
correct.
Now, I know you mentioned a binder, but can you put some of these processes and checklists online? These guys are.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can do it you can put it in a binder. You can put it on the if you have internet, you can put it in Dropbox. You can just save it on your drive, on the computer in Word. It doesn't matter, whatever works for you, but it has to be documented. Because again, can't emphasize it enough. You will not be able to grow a business beyond yourself until you get this done.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So that moves us on to questions. I don't see any right now. And if you guys have any questions, please send them over. I know we got some good ones throughout the webinar, but please send us any questions that you have, or if you have an idea or something like that you want to share with everybody else, please.
Yeah, I think there is a question here, Drew. I see a question. It says, how would the owner make sure that, as an owner, how can I make sure that I know what the processes were done correctly? So basically the answer for that is that if you're aware of the processes and what they are, you will also create a reporting system. So let's say it's a good question because, you basically, if you do not answer the phone yourself, but you delegate it to somebody else, how would you know that they're actually following the process, right? So you have to create some kind of a reporting system where you see how many leads came in. And the 33-mile radius calls, for instance, are recorded. So I always encourage the owners to listen to the call so they can see what is happening. And then they can correct. It goes back to the drilling and repeating. They can correct the person who answers the phone in case something was not done correctly, but also validate them and say, hey, you did a great job. I listened to the call and you answered exactly per the script. Fantastic. So there are different ways for you to monitor the performance of the employees.
Right, absolutely, and you can do so. You can do so even using kind of the carrot method. It was like, hey, if you follow the process each and every single time, you'll get rewarded. That sort of thing. There's so many different ways to make sure they're following it.
Absolutely.
So, great.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then there is, we answered this one. What is the best way to document the process? Okay, so we already went over that. So I think that question is answered.
Yeah, somebody else just asked, what are some examples of what we can have the owner do while they wait for us to arrive? I kind of touched on that. We kind of touched on that earlier. I think the same question came through.
Yeah.
And that really just depends on the phone call. Again, every situation is a little bit different. There's definitely things you can have the homeowner kind of do or take their mind either off of the emergency while you're getting there. Maybe it could be, hey, you need to make sure all your kids and your animals and or that kind of stuff are out in a different room or a different part of the house. If there was items that are going to get wet, make sure to move those if those are important to you, that sort of thing. So really always revolve around safety, and you can come up with kind of other ones depending on the situation.
Fantastic. And I see another one just came in is um, where another assignment for caller might be to check with neighbors if in condo or multi-housing unit to see if any. Yeah, excellent. That's an excellent idea.
Joe,
That's right, because then you can come in and you can have multiple jobs there. And there's another question. How do I start documenting the processes? Where to start? That's an excellent question, and I've been asked that a lot. What I recommend is that you start with those processes that are going to get you the most benefit in terms of more efficiency and more profitability. So you look at, for example, I'm not going to start with documenting the process on how to create file folders, because it's important, but it's not as important as creating a process on how to answer the phone and having a phone script, because that's where you're losing the majority of the leads, or that's where you are going to gain the majority of the money if you actually answer correctly and be able to follow that particular process. So that will be an example of a process that I will start with, right? So really, you need to look at your core processes, and I always start with documenting the 20% that will get the 80%. It's the 20-80 rule. It's the 20% of the processes that are going to get you the 80% change, right? The 80% positive change. So you have to identify right now where are your pain points. Maybe it's the estimating. Maybe you have a few estimators and each one of them does it differently. Or maybe there is a lack of communication between the technicians and the office, so you don't get the paperwork on time, so you're lagging behind. Okay, well, that's a pain point right there. If you fix that, the paperwork would come in faster, and then you can bill faster. Okay, so that's a process that has to be looked at and documented and implemented and drilled until everybody knows it called and they just do it. Right there, you fix the problem, and you're gonna make more money that way. So that's what I recommend, is looking at the processes that you're gonna profit from the best first, and then move on to the processes for the rest of the company.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that's a good tip there. But all right, I think that's kind of all the questions right now. And guys, that was really good questions and really good insights and tips that you guys shared with us. It's awesome. So just want to thank you for that. Adi, unless you have anything else to add, I'm going to kind of move on to the last slide here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is, contact us for a free consultation. So we obviously help contractors get more leads through our lead generation service. But if you have any questions about how to answer your phone call better, give us a call. We'll be more than happy to help you out and give you some of these tips and tricks. You can contact me. My number's right there. Or you can call that number, ask for me, or talk to one of our account managers, and they'll be happy to kind of help you through the process. And we have a lot of documents internally that we use for our contractors that we can send to you and go more in depth on this. So we would have to kind of analyze a couple phone calls if you want to, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I will offer also for the participants, if you need help with writing one process, I will be willing to do a free consultation on and guide you through writing that process, so you can see how it's done, and that it might give you the push to continue creating the rest of them.
Right. Absolutely. So that's all I have for today. Again, thank you for joining us for this webinar. I hope this does help you answer more phone calls yourself and with your team, and convert more of those into some jobs. Again, we're always here to help, so feel free to reach out to myself or Adi. We will send the slide deck and a video recording of this webinar to you guys, probably later today, maybe tomorrow, if you want to share with your team or if you want to take a look at it again. So they'll always be there for you. But Adi, that's all I got, and I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day too to kind of share with us and everybody here today everything that you know.
Okay, great. Yeah, I appreciate everybody that was here, and hopefully it was helpful for you and you will start implementing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, and everybody have a good day, and take care.
Okay, thank you, Drew.
Bye.
Bye-bye.